All right, Ariel, we're back with another Pints with Air, 6/16, June 16th, 2023. It's a great day. We got an awesome topic to go over. I'm really excited because it's kind of the reintroduction of a really cool product that we used to make. And so it's kind of one part classic product rundown and one part backed by popular demand.
Right.
So we're talking about the QA9, ladies and gentlemen.
QA9.
It's back. And it's sexier than ever. But we'll talk about beer first, because this is a new one. I've never had this brewery before. This is new to me.
I don't remember what it was. It's been a while, but they're local. Well, here in Lafayette or Broomfield, I forget. They're in Lafayette. Odd 13.
So Odd 13 Brewing. So yeah, so last week I was hoping to get Clay Hansen on to the episode with us, but scheduling stuff prevented that from happening. And so this was actually given to us from Clay for tonight's episode. So even though he's not on as our special guest tonight, he got us the beer for today. So Odd 13. This is codename Superfan. The code name for our superfans are Airheads.
Right.
But this is pretty good. It's an IPA.
Yeah, hazy IPA. Again, I'm traditionally not an IPA fan, but again, I think I need to revisit that choice, because the last few I've had have been, including this, are awfully delicious.
You're growing up. Your taste buds.
Yeah.
Taste buds are developing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, for those who want to know about the ingredients, it looks like these guys use Citra, Simcoe, and Equinot hops, and then 2-row malts, Golden Promise, red wheat, white wheat. So it's kind of a hoppy, weedy, hazy IPA. It's pretty good. It's a strong one, 6.5%, and this is my lunch today, so hopefully we can make it through this episode without me getting too silly.
Yeah, it's dinner time, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, the QA9, I'm really excited for this product. So this is an A to D converter. So it looks deceptive. I mean, at first glance, you'd think, oh, that's the QB9, but we got a volume knob and we got some meters here. So it's a little, yeah, on the surface, it looks similar to the QB9, but it's kind of doing the opposite. It's doing analog to digital.
Yeah. So, we officially discontinued it a few years ago. Interest in it had waned, so there wasn't enough interest to really justify keeping it in production. But it's a phenomenal and really unique product in the way that it works, and it was something that Charlie was pretty passionate about. And if you go, it was reviewed in Stereophile by John Atkinson. If you read that review, you go back and find that is some really good points about and that may hint towards some other stuff we do here in the future relatively soon, to that the this kind of philosophy that when we're making amps and preamps and CD players, that typically one person buys it and one person gets to enjoy it. You might share it with some friends or your family. But on the other side of that, on the recording side, if we make a really awesome A to D converter and it gets used to make an album or a song, and it has an impact on thousands or millions of people. And so that philosophy is something that Charlie held and felt was really important, that we can bring what we think is really important, changes to the way music is represented. So, on that, on the recording side, if you look at what most A to D converters, how they've been designed, it's, again, I don't know all of them. I don't know how they're all designed, but at least from the sampling that I've seen, or what I know about is, we're probably one of the few or only that would design an A to D converter with fully balanced, zero feedback, discrete circuitry, and as well as non-brick wall digital filtering. And so things that we know from the reproduction side are extremely important, and they are equally, if not more important, on the record side. And so it's really a shame that that's not done more often on that side. So that's part of what made it a really, really special product.
Yeah, and from what I was able to pick up on it, just kind of going back in time and studying up and doing some reading, that stereophile review is awesome. It gives so much great information on it, but I think you can get a really good sense of like who Charlie was from reading it too. You can tell he was really passionate in the pursuit for the music, based off of reading that. But I think initially because we're a hi-fi company, when we first designed it, it was kind of maybe more marketed towards like archiving and vinyl archival purposes.
Right. Yeah, that's for who are, yeah, there's definitely more targeted for that, as well as the features. We're not necessarily studio friendly. And so, yeah, it was targeted more for an audiophile that wanted to, let's say, they wanted to convert their vinyl to digital in the most authentic way possible. We have plenty of customers that did exactly that and still do.
Yeah, there's still, it's to my perception, it seems like that's still a relevant topic of conversation. I mean, like this product here is going to allow for people to capture their collection in a way that they wouldn't be able to experience it through any sort of streaming service or anything like that. It gives you an opportunity to not only capture a unique format and reproduce it in a whole new way, in a sense, but you can kind of digitize things that you wouldn't be able to find on streaming services too. There's a lot of records and things out in the world that you can't just go and search on Tidal or Qobuz right now, but being able to archive that and digitally access it through some of this modern tech with like Render or some cool server like that or something from those guys. That's just a great service to provide. But in essence, it's really a mastering grade analog to digital converter. I mean, it's a 2-channel converter. I mean, in the pro industry, musicians and recording engineers, they're no strangers to A to D converters over there, but it's very different once you get to this level where you're focused really on the stereo processing, just the 2-channel aspect of it. The other things that really caught my attention about it, this is where I was going with it, is it seems that for the time, the design was pretty revolutionary, similar to the QB9, where the A to D chip itself can provide a lot of clocking and filtering and other functions, but we didn't use any of that in this, right? Like we still used external processing for filtering and didn't rely on a lot of those functions built into the chip, and used it more as just an A to D chip. Yeah.
That there was real reasons that we sought out and we chose this chip is that it offered access to the raw converter data, as opposed to being already decimated down to whatever sample rate and bit depth you wanted. So we're basically getting the raw output of the modulator stage. So we're getting 6 bits at either 11 or 22 megahertz, sorry. And so we're getting the raw data so that we can then manipulate that how we want to do it. So it's not using any of the traditional for digital filter. And so that's what's really special about this, is that this, Charlie, we did a ton of research and went back to some old research from decades ago, some really interesting techniques. It was able to, translate those into, something really modern. So use a filtering technique. It's called moving average filtering. And so what it does is that there's what we call essentially perfect transient response. So there is zero ringing introduced, and so it, again, extremely analog like, so that it mimics analog tape almost perfectly. And so it has like the same frequency roll off as, well, at least at 192 kilohertz sampling, has the same frequency roll off as a 30 IPS tape. It mimics it all exactly. And then 30 IPS and 15 IPS, if you go down to 96K, again, they almost match exactly the actual analog response of the analog tape. And so again, it's you're not going to get a more analog like digital conversion, and that's why it's really, really special.
Yeah,
if you're converting your vinyl, or you're in a particular studio situation where you can where you just want the two channels, this thing can't be beat.
right. And a true variable gain input stage too, correct?
Yeah, we use variable gain, a slight variation on the way we do it in the current preamps, but it's done at essentially the same stage. And so the input stage, yes, we are adjusting, varying the gain of that stage to be able to control level, because that's different from, for the reproduction side, is that you have to be really careful about overloading the A to D converter. And so if your signal is too big, more than it can handle, it's going to clip and you're losing information. And so that's unique to this, is that you need to set that level right so that you are using as much of the digital range as possible, so that you are getting the most signal noise, the most dynamic range, but not too much that you're clipping and losing those peaks.
And potentially introducing noise in the process too, just by amplifying through a non-variable gain kind of setup there. Yeah, that is another really cool feature about this that not a lot of other A to D converters can even touch.
Yeah, so it has 24 dB range and 2 dB steps, which should cover, I hope, every situation. I haven't seen one that it hasn't been able to cover yet.
Yeah. Well, so another real unique and special part about this, and one of the whole reasons why this is even happening, is probably the chip itself. And so it utilizes the Arda AT1201, and we just happen to squirrel away a little stockpile of them over the years and hold on to them. But it's a highly sought after chip, and companies like Merging Technologies, to name one that's really prominent that I can think of, companies like those guys use this chip, or used it in some of their highest end interfaces to record into programs like Pyramix. And gosh, it's just this chip has only really been found in some of the nicest stuff out there. But I remember when we were first talking about this project, bringing it back this last year, I did reach out to Merging, and just as a joke was like, hey, we're looking for these, do you guys have any? And the reply was like, no, but if you find any, let us know. So yeah, I mean, it's something that I think if people knew that we had these, they'd be banging on our door a little bit. But yeah, so the Arda AT1201, do you want to mention anything that was special about that?
Well, I already did.
Yeah.
I mean, that's that is the converter chip, and so that is one of the few ADC chips that gives you access to that raw modulator data. There are a couple other chips, but they're not quite as they don't have quite the dynamic range or they offer that data at a lower bit rate or something. So yeah, this was fairly unique in what it was able to offer, and at really high quality. It was a very small company with a couple enthusiasts, that a few guys that actually cared about sound. It wasn't like a TI or on somebody that was a mega corporation and a department making that was mostly based on specs. And so these guys, they actually cared about the sound. They would actually do revisions. They would listen to it really closely. They cared more about the sound than necessarily the specs. They were able to get excellent specs out of it.
Yeah,
there's some results. So yeah, so we befriended them at the time, and we learned a lot, and they gave us some other secrets about how to use, particularly how to get better DSD data out of it. So the QA9 is capable of outputting DSD as well, and so we're able to get to. They helped us do the conversion of that raw data to DSD in our own Xilinx, as opposed to getting their converter, which it performs quite a bit better than the raw DSD data that the Arda chip provides. We're able to get quite a bit lower noise, lower distortion performance with the DSD data. But yeah, so I believe the company at one point was bought by Google, and then they had hopes of keeping it going. I lost touch with them, but I know it doesn't exist anymore. They don't make the chips anymore. So, and I know, at the time they're pretty unknown. Not many people knew about them. Again, they're fairly new and small. But so I know, like, since then, I know that they've grown a bit of a cult following for the converter chip. People have learned that, oh yeah, this thing was really special. So yeah, we have a small stash of them, and I'm putting them onto boards right now. So we're doing, this whole thing is about that we are doing a limited run of roughly 50 units that we're going to be making here this summer, and are going to be available very soon. And that'll be it for this product. We have some other projects that will do things a little bit differently, maybe next year. But for this product and this chip, this is going to be it.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned the dynamic range thing, because that was another thing that really stood out to me when I was just perusing through the internet, trying to geek out and find some specs and information on it. God, I want to say it had something like 124 dB of dynamic range or something quite exceptional. It quite a bit. It was a couple dB more than what most chips right now are offering, in terms of dynamic range, and so it might not have like the widest, most analytical frequency response, maybe, but from what I can tell, it's probably going to have the most realistic, dynamic, lively kind of sound to it, and especially for a mastering purpose. Or even, to me, mastering high-end 2-channel tracking or the archiving stuff is going to be really where it's at for people. But for any of those applications, that's what you want. You want dynamics. You want liveliness in the recording. If you're able to capture the full breadth of the dynamics of the music effortlessly, you don't have to use as much compression or other tools to kind of make up for that. So that is, to me, one of the standout specs on it, at least, is the dynamic range.
Yeah.
And so on the cult following, we have a couple people out in the wild using them to kind of thank for that. Our friend here got cut off, but this is our friend from Berlin who we might invite on very soon as a special guest. But this is Zeno Mirror Key. I hope I said that right. But Zeno is a pretty accomplished mastering engineer and works in Berlin, and he's kind of he was the spark to the flame, it seems, in the resurgence of this product. And he uses one and in his studio. It's in his gear list. You can check out Zeno Mirror Key, and I'll put links in the description in the video below and all that. But he's a very busy mastering engineer, and it's just really cool to know that he's helping us achieve that wish that Charlie had, that having that sound of Ayre Acoustics imprinted and kind of archived on recordings for everyone to enjoy. He's already kind of he's been using it a lot over the last couple of years now, and because of his interest and his use in it, now we've got like 10 of them going to Germany for audio engineers all over Germany now. So yep. That's really cool. And another guy, Mark Galup, I hope he's okay with me using his LinkedIn picture here, but Mark has his own studio over in Tennessee, Gallup Mastering. And right when I started last year, Mark was one of the first people I started helping right when I joined Ayre, and it was really cool to hear his enthusiasm about using it as his primary converter, because he's a very busy studio guy. He's been doing this for a long time. And usually these kind of guys use a lot of gear. Like they go through gear maybe even faster than most hi-fi people do. And his ears have been on so many things, so many different pieces of gear and so many different pieces of music. And it's just really cool to know that the QA9 is his kind of go-to converter. So I love that. And then, you got Zeno's studio here. This is kind of his main like mastering studio. And then Zeno also does Atmos recording. And this has to be one of the coolest Atmos rooms I've ever seen. He's got vivid speakers for his main speakers for the surround sound, and then all of these Atmos speakers in here are Monroe eggs. Now, Robert Monroe is a acoustician, I think, from the UK, but he's very forward thinker. He's kind of like almost like Lawrence Dickey in the pro world in a sense. And when he came out with these egg monitors years and years ago, like the majority of the pro industry couldn't digest that and figure that out. But it's kind of cool to see that Zeno is using the Vivids and the Monroe eggs, because they're both kind of right on point with each other in that philosophy. But yeah, he's a busy guy, does a lot of mastering. QA9 is going on his masters. So if you go and check out his discography, listen to something within the last couple of years, it was done on a QA9. So that's awesome. That's super awesome. And so we did have to change it up a little bit too. So we have it's to properly revive it, we had to do some changes on it to accommodate some of the new machines and stuff at the machine shop, right? That was kind of there was some specialized machinery that was used for the original QB9 and QA9 that has been lost, and so it was not worth trying to recreate some of the jigs and machinery to do that. So we had to simplify the chassis a little bit. That QA9, the QB9 QA9 chassis was was fairly unique and pretty special, and at the time it was worth doing, but unfortunately that's not available to us anymore, and so we had to go another route. So we had to just simplify it. It's not quite as curvy as the original. It's the same overall size and form factor,
It's the same, exact same circuit board, exact same transformer and guts inside. Just the metal work on the outside shape has changed a little bit.
It's a little more masculine than feminine, I guess. It's just a little more just straight and thick and strong and kind of in your face, whereas this one's a little more tapered and swoopy, I guess. But
so that's the only change, for better or worse.
I like it. I mentioned before we got on, it kind of reminds me of some of the old school Ayre stuff, because like the V3, the K1, they all had these just real thick, uniform, thick front plates to them, and this kind of reminds me of that. I like it. It's kind of a throwback. And then and it's offered in standard and pro versions. This is kind of the standard version here. We don't have the extra B and C connections here, but we do give optional word clock out and DSD out connection.
Yes, and the DSDiff standard, which is really just for professional studios, might have would be able to make use of the DSDiff 2 or 3 standard, which is not very common, but it's capable of doing that. There's a set of diff switches in the back to be able to set the sample rate and the standard or the word clocking options. So it has both USB output to be able to connect to directly to the computer, or it has AES-EBU output again to connect to whatever other recording device you might have. We are using it primarily as the USB computer recording was the original idea. But I mean, it was very easy to add on the AES output.
Yeah, well, if there's maybe someone wanting to use this as like their premium A to D entry point into another audio interface, because this is only going to do 2 channels for you. Maybe you want to do this as like your lead singer's A to D conversion point into the program, but you've got other musicians in the room you're trying to track too. So you could do the AES out of this into another interface that has 8 or 16 channels that it could take. It could take this digitally into the other interface, and you can use the clock on here to kind of sync the two and make sure that there's no latency or any issues there. But yeah, I mean, like, this would be, gosh, I would for stereo recording and stuff, I would throw this on like my room mics for drums, or like an XY pattern on the fretboard of an acoustic guitar or something like that. Gosh, I mean, like the possibilities and kind of the benefits that this could provide in an engineering standpoint, it gets me really excited. Yeah, and actually, hopefully on a future episode, we'll have one as our entry point into the Pints with Ayre episode. We'll have our mics from our mic preamps from Grace Design powering us up soon once our podcast studio is clean and set up. And we have 1,000 of Charlie's records into their new home. But once that whole back area is set up, I mean, we've only got 2 channels to work with right now, so we can have one for each of us going into the QA9. So a future episode will be sounding awesome. Yeah, so QA9 very much could foreshadow some new ventures for us, as hinted by Ariel and as desired by Charlie back in the day. And it's just, I very much love that idea too. And with my background with recording and playing music and running concerts, I see a lot of value in hearing Ayre Acoustics on many recordings from here on out. So we got to make it happen. Well, I mean, this thing is awesome. Do you have any other things that I'm missing, or development stories that I was not here for, that would be fun to share?
No, not necessarily that I want to share. There were a few pains getting this thing finalized. This was during a particularly hard time of Charlie's in part of Charlie's recovery from the accident, and because this was in the middle of several years after his accident, but then he got food poisoning that nearly killed him again. And so getting this finalized, and then I think we released it briefly and realized it wasn't good enough, so we had to recall him and bring him back. And so I think even Atkinson's review mentioned that yeah, the first one we sent him wasn't quite up to snuff, and so we actually recalled some, made some changes, got them to where they should be. So no, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this one for sure.
Challenges, yeah.
That I've repressed plenty of at this point.
Well, QA9, so I mean, so as I mentioned at the beginning, this is kind of two parts. One piece, classic product rundown, one piece, hey, it's back by popular demand. And so this was the 21st product of ours that came out. So we jumped ahead a little bit in our sequence, but yeah, 21 products into our chronology. This was quite an achievement. I mean, it seemed for a company that started out as an amplifier and then preamp company, I mean, it seems like Ayre dove into the deep end on digital pretty quickly for D1 to C5.
Yeah, the fifth product was the D1. That's where we really put a stake in the ground that we were a premier digital conversion company. Yep.
Well, and then now that the chassis is all ironed out, more or less, I mean, it could be safe to say there might be some other uses for it again. Might see some other functionality in this little box for us down the road.
Yeah, it's a great form factor. I really do love the size, especially for like a desktop product or anything. It is a really great form factor. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, and it integrates easily into a lot of setups in that size too. I mean, it's kind of wide enough that it could still live on the same shelf as like another product almost, and it's gonna look, it won't look out of place. So like, yeah, it can fit into a lot of systems that way. But I'm excited. I want one for me, and so we have like 10 going to Germany. We have one going to our friends at Optimal Enchantment, one going to Music Lovers. I think one going to our friends in the UK soon. So I mean, like, yeah, they're of the few people that we've been kind of letting in on our secret that we were ramping up to do this. We've got a few very interested parties that have jumped on, but this is kind of our first official kind of announcement that it's back, and we'll do some more proper press releases and stuff soon, but
yeah,
we wanted to let our loyal airheads know about it.
Yeah, it's back again just for a very limited run. We only have a very limited supply of chips, and that's going to be it. So roughly 50 units are going to be available this summer.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, because yeah, I mean, we've already technically got like 11 or something spoken for or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it is a limited run, but it's back, and get it while it's hot. But yeah, QA9, we're making some stuff happen on recordings. Thanks for sharing with us your knowledge on it, Ariel. I wish I could have been here during the development. This is right up my alley, and I love it.
Yeah, we'll do some more stuff like this. It'll be good.
Nice. All right, well, I'm almost done. Cheers to everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us. Go out and try a codename Superfan from Odd 13, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.